My first video was all about the MCU, and now I'm sliding on over to the messier, not as good side of superhero entertainment. Now, although I haven't really kept up with the DCEU until last year or so, trust me, I love DC heroes just as much as I do our buddies over at Marvel. Whether it was the Superman animated series, that 3D animated Green Lantern series, drawing all the characters I saw on Scribblenauts Unmasked as a kid, or CW's Arrowverse, DC has a good amount of real estate in my heart. The love for superheroes has and always will be 10 toes down. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. The DCEU is coming to an end, and it's honestly pretty wild to see, so let's talk about it. Side note, I am not going over every single DC project in detail because I haven't seen everything, and don't really feel like I need to for this video. But hey, maybe I'll go back and do a big rewatch in the future. So, for as long as I can remember, the DCU has always been a mess, and as time went on, this issue only grew. There were definitely some interesting choices made narratively, and it was obvious as soon as you looked at the two faces of DC in the forms of Batman and Superman. The saga of Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill portraying these characters was something. A dark, brooding Superman, and an even darker, violent Batman who's old. I like to try to see the good in things, and I can appreciate Zack Snyder's nuanced takes on these two. I thought it was interesting to intertwine the two of them via the attack on Metropolis and Man of Steel, but it also made me question if they could have really formed the brotherly bond that they've had all these years. The two of them didn't really interact much in Justice League after Superman was revived, and when they did, things were still pretty tense and just awkward.
We buy him some time, he can stop that box from destroying all life on Earth. We hope.
Well, I knew you didn't bring me back because you like me.
I don't. Not.
Personally, I don't think the world was ready for or really wanted a dark Superman Jesus allegory thing on the big screen. And I don't think they wanted this either.
I perceive it as not him killing directly, but by sort of, if the bad guys are associated with the thing that happens to blow up, that's not really. He would say that that's not really my problem, you know, like they shouldn't have been around that
sort of
machine gun. What's that?
It's like manslaughter.
Yeah, a little more like manslaughter than actual murder.
Despite some of the shoddy storytelling in the movies that they appeared in, these two completely sold me as the two heroes growing up. Whenever they did feel like their traditional selves, it worked for me. And the saddest part is, these two were finally starting to show glimmers of the world's finest that people have come to know and love in their later appearances. We also have the curious case of the Justice League. Without mentioning behind the scenes issues just yet, the film itself just didn't land, and despite birthing one of the hardest posters of all time, this group didn't really have an aura, you know what I mean? Like, look here, aura. This picture right here, aura. And right here, aura. But this iteration of the Justice League just didn't have it. And maybe that's because of a forced fast track to a team up movie instead of giving each respective member their own movie to have a spotlight and make us really care about them. But that's just me. The 2017 Justice League in general was just nasty work. Joss Whedon's rewrites felt like the sorriest attempt at saying, look, we can be like the Avengers too. And the humor in the 2017 cut felt really forced.
Yeah. Oh, something is definitely bleeding.
I really enjoyed Shazam, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and the first Wonder Woman. But when you look at 2016 Suicide Squad or Wonder Woman 1984, you find yourself asking how they even got released. A lot of this universe's shortcomings really spawned from its story composition. Whatever Lex Luthor and Jared Leto's Joker were supposed to be is just not what I expected going in, and I'm sure plenty of others felt the same. I really wanted to enjoy Batman v Superman, but it felt like the plot lost itself over time, and when we did see Batman and Superman fight, it was kinda underwhelming. Talking about the 2017 Justice League one more time, Aquaman just felt like a discount Thor, and man, I have always hated Ezra Miller's Flash. But more on that later. Everything in the universe felt as loosely connected as the Marvel Netflix shows felt to the main MCU, which just made it harder to see things in a bigger picture. And things behind the scenes could be just as bad. Multiple members of the Justice League cast spoke about experiencing mistreatment during reshoots for 2017's Justice League when Zack Snyder had to step away from the project. This completely strained Ray Fisher's relationship with Warner Brothers, causing him to not want to be involved in any more projects after 2020, and made Ben Affleck completely uninterested in directing his Batman solo film. This really sucked because these two were pretty great in the Snyder Cut, and when we did get the Snyder Cut, it just made me hate the 2017 Justice League even more because of how it fell so flat, of really showcasing Zack Snyder's vision and turned into a parodied version of what he really had in mind. DC also had a huge issue with developing projects and them never seeing the light of day. I'd say the most infamous incident was the cancellation of the Batgirl film that was in post-production and featured Michael Keaton, funnily enough. Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav stated that the film was not releasable. which was the first time I ever heard something like that. I know Hollywood can be rough, but letting the directors know at one of their weddings is one of the cruelest things you could do to someone, let alone the cast and crew that contributed to the project. Other notable projects that never escaped development included Ben Affleck's solo Batman film, a solo Cyborg film, a Man of Steel sequel, and a Batman Beyond film, also featuring Michael Keaton. They really wanted this man back as Batman. When Man of Steel originally came out in 2013, it spawned a new competition, the DCEU versus the MCU. And since the start of this rivalry, it feels like DC has just been playing catch up. The negative reception following the already bad outlook from Batman v Superman made things rough, and Justice League didn't help much either. When you fast forward a bit, we got Black Adam last year, a film that had been in development since the 2000s but really started to come to form in 2014. When I watched this when it came out, I was uncontrollably laughing in the theater, and that's just because it felt like The Rock got superpowers. There wasn't really anything Black Adam about him. And I promise I didn't go into this movie hating it. I actually really wanted to like it, and I went into it with an open mind. But it was just mid. The Rock's attempted takeover of Warner Brothers, where
But the hierarchy of power has finally changed.
combined with spoiling Henry Cavill's cameo for the sake of marketing, made things surrounding this movie and the universe's future even more cloudy. And seriously, Black Adam really wasn't too bad of a movie. The JSA was actually pretty cool and I really enjoyed the costume design, but it wasn't this revolutionary project that The Rock made it out to be. Then the mother of all bombshells dropped a few weeks later. Walter Hamada stepped down as DC Studios president, and Peter Safran and James Gunn stepped in as co-CEOs. This meant that they'd be starting out with the brand new DCEU and planning out their vision for an 8 to 10 year plan, which was insane because they started by saying that Henry Cavill would not be Superman moving forward, right after his first on-screen appearance in a while, and a matchup between him and Black Adam being teased. This also meant that they were shipping out The Rock too, and he proceeded to crawl back to the Fast franchise where Vin Diesel waited for him like that boy Thanos. Instead, they'd be going with the brand new, younger iteration of Superman in a film that Gunn has written and will direct. Right now it's unclear as to how many actors will reprise their roles in some kind of way, but we'll see eventually. You know, when I started making this video, The Flash wasn't even out yet. And here we are in its fallout, because there is no talking about the end of the DCEU without mentioning The Flash. This might be one of the most polarizing movies to ever come out. But before I even think about talking about the film itself, I have to explain my feelings on Ezra Miller's Flash. I've never liked the DCEU Barry Allen. I know I said it before, but I just never have. Now look, I love The Flash. Super speed was one of the coolest powers to me when I was a kid, and seeing The Flash had my mind blown. My best friend and I even made up our own comic book about a speedster, and this was around the same time I binge watched the CW Flash. And shout out Grant Gustin, because he really held it down in middle school, man. And of course that show had its own travesties, but Grant Gustin's Barry Allen was just goated. So I wasn't the biggest fan of DCU Barry Allen when he debuted in Justice League, and I was just disappointed. Obviously I know now that he was supposed to be a younger version of the Flash, but I had just gotten so used to the more mature approach that Grant Gustin gave the character. And if I'm being really honest, comedic relief characters aren't my thing 9 times out of 10. So when I say I was nervous about this movie, boy was I nervous about this movie. I saw it early, and I personally think it's one of the best projects in the DCEU. Now, before I get assaulted in the comments or something, is it a perfect movie? Hell no. But I liked it. Hell, I loved it! Just kidding. It made me care about the DCU's Barry Allen, which I was really worried about going into it. And I'm very happy to say that this version of Barry has matured a lot since we first saw him in Justice League. This movie made him feel like a fully fledged hero, and the first act did a great job of showcasing it. The beginning of this movie in general was beautiful to me. Barry looked good while in motion, and the overall Gotham set piece was great. The mini Justice League reunion was nice to see and made me think maybe I will miss these faces a little bit. It gave me great Saturday morning cartoon vibes. It was always interesting to me that they were going for a Flashpoint-esque story without including Barry Allen's, I don't know, biggest rival and pretty much sole reason for it happening. And although it was just a single episode, I feel like the CW show adapted that storyline better than this. But for what we got and what they changed, it was just okay. The dynamic between the two Barrys was a bit annoying at first, but as the movie went on, it grew on me. And I thought that Michael Keaton's Batman and Sasha Calle's Supergirl were great additions. I was pretty glad that Keaton's Batman wasn't as prominent as a character as promotional material made him out to be, and realistically, this story could have been done without him. But that really applies to the both of them. Had this been a more grounded Flash story that really focused on Barry a bit more instead of Multiversal Shenanigans Part 647, 2007, I think it would have been a lot better, because this film definitely worked the best when it was grounded. And for The Flash's first solo film, I just think it would have benefited from being a smaller story. As far as the positives of this movie go, I thought there were some things that were done well. Finding out that Barry was in Metropolis somewhere in Man of Steel, cool. Him going back in time, very cool. And one of the few highlights of the movie. The little Speed Force Pantheon thing was really cool to me, and I thought it was also a nice new way to represent time travel. I also liked the role of Bruce in the film, whether it was Batfleck or Keaton's Batman. For his final appearance, Ben Affleck was really good in the little time he had on screen, and I enjoyed what both Bruces had provided as mentor figures. The writing when it came to Barry and his mom may have been the greatest part of the movie for me, and got me close to tearing up multiple times. It didn't really hit me until after watching the movie, but this working as an origin story with young Barry was pretty inventive, and main Barry acting as his mentor while also learning things about himself was really nice to see over the course of the story. The jokes weren't as bad as I thought they'd be either. I actually found myself laughing sometimes. The bad of this movie? Where do I even start? You had that really weird marketing where Stephen King and Tom Cruise were calling this the best movie they've ever seen. I'm looking at you too, James, but I know you were just doing your job. And you couldn't even use Ezra Miller to advertise the movie or go on press tours because of all their ordeals, and it was just a mess. And I haven't even gotten to the movie yet. I'm really losing my mind over here. For starters, this movie had some of the worst suits I've laid my eyes on. I tried to look past the Flash suit, but it just wasn't possible for me. Young Barry's makeshift suit was just as bad, if not worse. Batfleck's suit, also trash. There were some parts where the CGI was bad, and there were parts where it was really bad. From a storytelling standpoint, I don't think General Zod being in this movie had the impact that they thought it would. When I really thought about it, the Flash's biggest antagonist was Barry himself, and while I thought that was a really good lesson for him to learn, I just wish they were more straightforward with it. When I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League for the first time, I remember getting chills when Barry had to go back in time because the team lost. The score, combined with the weight of the moment, was really impressive, and I went into this movie waiting for some kind of moment that would make me feel the same way again, and it never happened. Then there was the final sequence in that CGI desert, looking like a Fortnite custom map or something. You had the Metropolis set piece right there, where everything started in this universe. You had it right there in front of you, and you just dropped the ball. The parallels would have been crazy. This is your last hoorah before you refresh everything. This could have been a generational movie, and you guys dropped the ball so bad. I knew after watching this movie, not everyone was gonna love it, but if you told me it bombed the way it did, I would have thought you were just joking. And the cameos. Oh my god, the cameos in this movie. When people started popping up, especially dead people, I knew the outrage was going to be serious as I sat in my theater seat, and rightfully so. Do you know how crazy it was to not see Grant Gustin or John Wesley Shipp in this movie at all? Yeah, we got a Jay Garrett cameo, but who is this man? Everyone thought it was Teddy Sears, and he said it wasn't even him. There were about 3 versions of Superman, and it's even more frustrating because the director, Andy Muschietti, said that there wasn't any room, but I just don't think that was true at all. You know how cool it would have been to see not only more variants of the Flash, but maybe a glimpse at the Flash family? Nah. We're gonna give you 3 Supermen. You gonna sit down and enjoy them. Then, the deaths of Keaton Batman and Supergirl ultimately led to the reveal of the main villain, Dark Flash. And it was a cool twist for this variation of the story, but it was so predictable. Aside from the toy leaks a few months ago, and knowing that the Reverse Flash would not be in this movie, even though my delusional self was waiting to see like some red boots pop up out of nowhere. It was cool to have Barry have a lesson about himself literally standing in front of him. Sometimes you just have to let go. And he finally realized that. And so you have him saying goodbye to his mom one more time. But then you know what? Barry, what does he do? Immediately forgets that lesson. Moves the tomato cans that his dad picks up anyway. And then who do you come back to? George Clooney with some shades on, walking up to you like your besties. So it was just crazy to me that such a big lesson was thrown away so quickly. With all that being said, I wouldn't lose sleep if I didn't see a crumb of the DCEU ever again. There were good moments, but the execution with everything ultimately fell on its face. It is a bit weird to me that James Gunn is seemingly keeping a lot of his stuff and his people from what he's worked on in the past, but he is in charge, so yeah. There were whispers of a Flash sequel already being written, but seeing how the movie performed, I don't think that's gonna happen. Nor do I want it to. DC really has to take the L and learn from all the mishaps that they've had for the last 10 years. Aquaman 2 is also set to release later this year, but I'd be a liar if I said I planned on seeing it, so The Flash is really it for me with this universe. I honestly do look forward to James Gunn's DCU, and I think he has a vision. Even though I see fired James Gunn and Peter Safran trending at least once a week, I'm extremely excited to see Superman Legacy, and just want to see a Superman who makes me feel like a kid again. Not too long ago, James Gunn announced that he selected Andy Muschietti to also direct the Batman Brave and the Bold film. Personally, I have no problems with this because I liked all the Batman action in The Flash. Please, cook up something immaculate, because this is the closest we the people have gotten to seeing the Bat family on the big screen, and if this gets messed up, I will not be able to handle it. The Batman was honestly perfect to me, and I can't wait for part 2, so I'm really hoping that the DCU Batman can match Robert Pattinson's greatness. And Mr. James Gunn, please don't feel like you have to shelf The Flash for the next 10 or so years. The failures of this movie should not stop the future. Wally West is right there. Just do what the people want. It's Wally's turn. And please include Nightwing somehow in Batman Brave and the Bold. That's just for me. Thank you.